Hi everybody, this is Pastor Mark with an update regarding the resumption of worship at Salem and Mt. Moriah Lutheran Churches. As I think a lot of you know, we were working under the Restore Illinois plan, which didn't allow gatherings of more than 10 persons until we reached Phase 4, and the earliest date we thought we could reach Phase 4 was June 28th. So since about the 1st of May, we've been preparing for resumption with the assumption that June 28th was going to be the date. Earlier this week, on Monday, the state reissued some revised guidelines for congregations and changed their guidance so that congregations could reopen immediately with attendance limited to 25% of total capacity or 100 persons, whichever happens to be fewer. Obviously, looking at both of our congregation sanctuaries, it was going to be the 25%, not the 100. I don't think you could get 400 people into either church unless they were very, very small. We wanted to find a way to reopen as quickly as possible because we know you've been missing church and I've been missing you, and I really would love to get everyone back together quickly. So we were working behind the scenes to make that happen. I came up with a phased reopening that would kind of start at Mount Moriah, having a few people come to observe the live stream and help take part in the service. Starting with 10 people, 20 people, then 30 people, as we kind of worked our way back into having public worship. In talking things over with the leadership of both councils and also with the people who were involved in creating the live stream, they had some concerns, some very valid concerns. We looked at what would be involved and we decided that it simply was not possible for us to do so in a way that was safe, mostly for everyone involved. As we know, there still is an active outbreak of COVID-19 here in Union County. In fact, we have the worst per capita outbreak in all of outstate Illinois. We need to take that seriously. I know because I hear from many of you, you're going to the stores and people are not wearing their masks. They're kind of being a little bit sloppy. Not a good idea. Really, really not a good idea. There is community spread here, and so this is a good time to be safe. So one advantage of holding off until the 28th is that it gives a little more time for the virus to be contained and for this outbreak we're experiencing in Union County to be reduced. But we are going to go ahead and reopen on June 28th at both congregations. Like I said, the plan allows for 25% capacity based on a reasonable estimate of both congregations' seating capacities. We believe that would be 45 persons at Mount Moriah and 30 persons at Salem. That's slightly under the average attendance at both churches, but we do understand that a fair number of you are probably not going to want to come back to church right away, and we don't blame you. Some of you are in a high-risk category and really should not come back right away, and others of you simply just don't feel comfortable doing so right now. And I got to tell you, I respect that. I totally respect that. You should arrange your life in such a way that the level of risk you expose yourself to is suitable to you. And that's true not just of church, but of all things. Fortunately, we have always, for the last year and a half now, done a live stream from Mount Moriah. So those of you who don't feel comfortable coming back to church right away can still watch the live stream from Mount Moriah and get your worship that way. For those of you that do come to church, we really want to welcome you starting June 28th. What happens when the 46th person shows up at Mount Moriah or the 31st person shows up at Salem? You're not going to be turned away at the door. We don't want, it's not going to be like that. We're hoping we'll all self-regulate and understand that if we shouldn't be at church, we'll stay home and watch if we have the ability. But we also have to acknowledge that there are people who do not have that ability, and they've been missing church, and they've been missing human contact just as much as you have, maybe even more. And so it's important that we have an option for them as well. You will notice a few changes when you come back. The service will be short. It'll be essentially the same service that we've been doing online, with the exception that the closing hymn will be taken out, because studies have proven that singing is one of the primary ways that COVID-19 can be spread. So we need to limit it as much as possible. The service will only have one hymn, and there's no expectation that you will sing it. If you want to just sit there and listen, that's probably wise. Social distancing will be observed in the sanctuary. That's the way that it has to be. All members of a household will be allowed to sit in the same pew, but otherwise we are expecting 2 to a pew at Salem, 1 at each end, and 3 to the long pews at Mount Moriah, 1 at each end and 1 in the middle. Again, if there's 5 people in your family and you all want to sit together and you've all been in contact with each other regularly throughout this pandemic, that's okay. Otherwise, please observe that 6-foot distancing. Every other pew will be blocked off. And that means, unfortunately, that some of you are not going to be able to sit where you're accustomed to, and, oh boy, some of you are going to have to sit in the front of the church. Look, this outbreak has made us all do strange things. There will be a few other changes as well. An important one for folks at Salem is that in order to accommodate the drive-up communion that is going to continue at least through the end of July, your worship time is changing. Worship at Salem will now begin at 10 o'clock so that we can get it finished and be set up and ready for the drive-up communion starting at 11. That will be the only way to receive communion from June 28th through at least the end of July will be through the drive-up. We have plans underway to find ways to add communion back into the service, but we don't want to add it in right away. We want to get all the kinks worked out of actually having people present in the building for a service. There will not be bulletins, and in fact we will probably remove the hymnals as well, just because the fewer things there are to touch, the fewer things there are that have to be cleaned. So we're going to rely on everyone using the screens up front as their only worship resource. We'll add things back in gradually as we get a little ground under our feet, but that's the way it's going to be at first. So those are the major changes. You can't sit wherever you want. We do ask that you wear a face covering. We know not everyone can. We know not everyone wants to. We know not anyone really wants to. But if you simply cannot wear a face covering, if it's something that's too hard for you to breathe with it on, or it's just something you don't like to do, we would ask that you be very vigilant about staying 6 feet away from everyone, further if you can, and refrain from loud speaking or singing while you're in the building. And again, we're going to do everything we can to get you out of the building within 30 minutes because data has proven that after 30 minutes, the risk begins to increase. That if we're not together much longer than 30 minutes, it's basically safe as far as we know. But once you get past 30 minutes, it gets a little more dangerous. We will give more details about this as we get closer to June 28th so that you have a better idea of what to expect. But I just wanted to let you know that June 28th will be a reopen date for a very, very significantly altered worship service. And again, you got any questions, just let me know. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing some of you, but certainly not all of you, on June 28th. Thanks.